Cool. Okay. I used to wait tables at an improv, but I had already started doing comedy.
I
And yeah.
this okay. Now we're off. So I'm always
Yeah.
curious about people who work at comedy clubs and also do comedy. There's a couple people here who do it. For
Oh
you,
yeah.
how long are you willing to put up with comedy club bullshit, I guess, to be like an inside track at the comedy club?
Yeah. Well, so I did it because there was an improv in Louisville where I'm from for a few years. And I mean, we can talk about it. They kind of ran it into the ground, I feel like. But I mean, I know nothing, but I'm like, it seems to me like they were like papering the room a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, but so I was about to move to New York, and they were like, "Do you want to wait tables here, like before you move to save money?" Or I can't remember if I asked or they asked, but I did it for a few months, and it was. I mean, honestly, it was great because like they would throw me on stage, like not on on a Thursday or something, and then I made a shit ton of extra money. But like I
Right.
didn't care. I wasn't like working hard. I was like watching the shows.
Yeah. What do you think it gives you? Because I think being a staff member of a club, and not necessarily a comic, but I'm here every week type of staff member where you see new comics coming in, it gives you a different
Yes.
perspective than anyone else can get.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Just seeing like how hard they work to like turn the room over and like, get like everybody in there and quiet and laughing and like hyped up for the show. Like I have a ton of respect for people that run a comedy club room. Like, um, and even like little things like being like, or at the improv, it was like this, like the best, I was talking to John Doerr about this weekend. It's like, the best waiter gets like the green room because you get tipped more. So now as a comic, I'm like, oh, I need to tip this guy because like they worked really hard to get this position or whatever. Like it's supposed to be fun for them. And so like little things like that.
Yeah, which you would never know if you were just a comic showing up.
Yeah.
Because how would you?
Right. And just you probably think like, oh, this is the only room that they have. But meanwhile, it's like they have 20 other tables at least that they're dealing with. And like just seeing like how, drunk people get and like how like people, I had a guy once at the improv, like he swore that this waiter stole his credit card for like a good 30 minutes. Like he just assumed, and I pulled him in the kitchen. I was emceeing the show and I pulled him in. I was like, hey, I'm on your side. Let's figure this out. He was so wasted. And I was like, can you check your pockets? He was like, I checked all my pockets, blah, blah, blah. Well, I was like, you know what? Let's check them again. One more time. And then he did. And then he was like, oh, it's in my pocket. And I was like, yeah, like.
Yeah, no apologies. No apologies at all.
No apologies. Like just assuming the worst out of this poor guy. Like,
we had a guy this weekend lose his wallet Friday night. And he called, he said, hey, is my wallet there? We go, no, your wallet's not here. He called Saturday morning, hey, I think my wallet's there. Your wallet's not here. He's like, I'm going to show up. He showed up. Hey, I need to walk around and find my wallet. And so I lost all my patience, and I'm walking around with this guy like, yeah, I guess some idiots don't understand. People don't lie about wallet. Like, I had completely lost my patience. Because I think people assume, I don't know, it's not a real job, right? Like, you wouldn't go to a bank and be like, you stole my credit card.
Yeah,
you'd be like, I must have made the mistake.
Yeah, for sure. Because people think they're coming to a comedy club. It's a bunch of delinquents, like, running things or whatever. And like kind of that's probably true more of the comics than the people running around. But like no, we're an institution here. Like we're,
yeah, we're
legit
business.
Yeah,
taxes get paid. We have an employee ID number and like what are you doing?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, people can be so shitty to any kind of wait staff, but I think comedy club there's something extra there about like, and also it's like you're at a place where like people are shitting on an institution on stage, so there's like that level to it as well. But
well, yeah, because there's not, I don't think you'll go to a nightclub or something kind of equivalent where the DJ's like, fuck this club, and people are like, yeah, fuck this club. But as a stand-up, there's so many people who not necessarily go out of their way to say like, fuck this club, but they'll, you know, make sly comments about the serving staff or not bring up tipping, like little things where you're, other people are like, all right, then fuck it, yeah.
Right, yeah, or like get upset at the room when like they're, dropping checks or something. I don't know. I mean, I've never worked with anybody who's done that because you kind of always know that that's coming.
Well, I guess I'll say this, on wax, but we try to be sneaky about it and not drop in the first couple of rows. Because then I know that if you see the checks being dropped, you're like, oh, no wonder they're not laughing. When, no shade, but that might not be the case. Like, they just might not be feeling your shit. So if you kind of do it around to where people don't see it, and I also think that's just respect, where you're like, all right, we'll try to make it the best we can for a comic, for you coming up and doing your time.
Yeah, for sure. That was another thing I saw on the flip side of being the waitress there is like, they do make it a point to be like, hey, when you are down in the front, like, don't like just walk around all upright, like make sure you're getting low down, like, whispering to the tables, which on mine as a comedian, like, yeah, that's a no brainer. But when you're just doing a waitressing job, like, you don't really necessarily know or care.
Oh, and it's the hardest. It's the hardest thing. I mean, it's easy because you get a whole 8-hour shift in, an hour and a half, 3 hours. But it's so difficult to deal with drunk people in the dark quietly.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's impossible.
Right. And you get everyone at one time. And as soon as people I'll never understand this, but as soon as people sit down, I need a drink. Where's my drink? I need a drink. Like, relax.
Oh, my God.
We got time.
Yeah, we have a whole at least hour and a half here, and like we're gonna run them out quickly. Yeah, people do, especially at the improv like that I worked at, because it was on 4th Street Live, so it was like a big string of like nightclubs basically, and then this comedy club. So people came in there like expecting like, to get served right away and stuff, and it's like it was 300 something seats. It's not happening.
Yeah, you're gonna get your drink in 10 minutes. Like I for some reason, I think people think it'll be immediate. Like if we went to a comedy club and we had to wait at the bar for our drinks, there's a line of 300 people. I'm not gonna be at the back like, rum and Coke, hey!
Yeah, right,
hey!
yeah.
Like you understand
like,
that it takes time.
We were expecting you, yeah.
Right.
What do you think of...
go ahead.
Sorry. I was talking to a comic this weekend about like the QR codes with COVID. Yeah. Do you think that'll change anything as far as like comedy clubs, or is it just, I think we're just going to run it the same?
So here's my, all right. So I have pros and cons with that. The pro is here we're always like, if you're talking to your server, you need to get your mask up. And there's a lot of times server will go to get someone to order or take their payment. And they're like, and people are like, oh, whatever. And then they get their mask up.
Yeah.
So safety-wise, I'm down for it. And also, if a server didn't show up or if something wild happens, I could still get orders out with less staff.
Right.
Right. And then this outside show, I'm going to set it up to like be, I guess, Starbucks, where you can order on your phone and then go and pick it up. So I don't have to have someone outside trying to run drinks and figure that out.
Yeah, that's cool.
So there's benefits to it. But the cons to it are, I sat down, I got on my phone, where the fuck is my Jameson? I ordered it 20 minutes ago. Yeah. Where's my Jameson?
Right.
And also, I have a romantic idea of comedy clubs, and I would hate for them to turn into, I guess, like a Red Robin, where they have the thing on the table and you just put your order in and...
Yeah. No, you're so right. Because like there is something about like a server who's like been there forever and is like experienced and is like, hey, you're gonna see these people tonight, like they're so fucking funny, like I've worked with them all week. Yeah, there's definitely something to that.
Right. For like sure. COVID to me has taken a lot of magic out of a comedy club because it's more spaced out now. We're not right on the stage. Like you've been to the Philly one, how the seats are normally right there on the stage, like up close.
Yeah.
That's kind of different. I've been trying to tweak the music up a little bit because it feels like energy's down.
Yeah.
It used to be you come in half hour before the show starts. All right, show's going and people are amped. Now we open up the doors an hour before because you got to pick up your ticket, come in the showroom, and leave. Like you can't hang out in a bar.
Oh yeah. So they got to go like if they want drink somewhere else or do whatever and come back.
Right, but there's no hanging out at the bar, and that used to feel like an event, and it feels less like an event now than I think it ever has.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And there's something to the thing of like having someone right there, like almost on top of you, who's like, you see them laugh and then you start laughing, and then like, because it's so contagious.
Right.
Yeah, we started running, I mean, like, this is not a club thing, but we started running that show that I'm doing in Brooklyn. Now it was like, we had to move inside the other day, which like I didn't want to do, but it was raining. And we were like, I don't want to cancel the show. And it was like, we had people sit, they had to be far apart. So it was like, probably like, it's like 20 people in there, but they were like sitting in booths, like looking around the corner. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, why are we even doing this? You know? I mean,
yeah, it's the best analogy I heard about it was Moses Storm said that doing comedy during COVID is almost like reading a review of fireworks, where you're like, yeah, you know, I'm getting it, but it's just, I don't know. I'm curious to see in the summer how it goes, because it used to be hot, right? Like, I mean, we have AC. We're not poor, but it used to be like hot and heavy, and it was like, ooh, I'm in here to laugh, and those were the funnest months.
Yeah.
And the crowds were usually lighter in the summer, but they still came out. You had 150. When we're at 50 now, we'll probably get to 100, and it's still enough room where you're looking around like, oh, no one else is laughing at this asshole joke or whatever, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, and then you have less people in the room, so there's less of a chance of relating to something. Like, you know, I always say when I'm on stage, I'm like, what other gay people are here? And like, in Indianapolis, there was like one of the whole weekend. There was only one. I was like, what the fuck are the odds of this? Like my odds are going down.
I mean, I would guess there's probably more. They were just like, I don't want to speak. Yeah. I've noticed that too. Even like, hey, who's married here, or anything like, hey, make noise. People are weird about it now.
Yeah. I wonder, and it is like, I was listening to your one with Shane Torres that you did earlier, and you're like, today, because I love Shane, and we're talking about like people easing back in, and it's like, I mean, we're also easing back in, and it's like, I think a lot of my new bits are just way too conversational. And you know how you write stuff and you whittle it down? I just haven't, like, it's taking me longer to do the whittling down. Like, I think it's because like, it's you can't judge, like the laughter's also not there, so it's like we're both trying to like figure it out.
Yeah, it's been so interesting to see like people like I don't know, Brian Regan I got to see, and his comedy is very like, I don't want to he doesn't watch it, fuck it, he'll never see this. His comedy is just as good on Netflix as it is live, right? It's so perfect and dialed in, and he doesn't miss a beat. So and he's a theater comic, so you might as well watch him at home. You'll get the same thing. Last week we had this dude Akash in town, and he's a very club person, right? He's like, how long you been married? Who's this? What's going on? And having that in 50 people, it just feels so different. Like Regan was 50, it felt whatever. But when you have like real, I don't want to say real comics, because Brian Regan's one of the best ever, but I'm saying real club people. I'd love to see it tell in 50 people, because
or like an Ian Bagg, like trying to do what he does, like with a small amount, like and especially when people are like nervous to say anything, like it's such a skill to like get people to talk to you, because like I think half the time I have this moment in my show where like I do a little bit of crowd work, and it's like it's not like plugged in, but it's like I ask, like it's like a call and response kind of thing, and like nobody wanted to do it, like nobody, and like and I don't have that skill of like getting it out of people like the way that some other comics do. So it's like, oh, if no one says anything, then we're just moving on. Like,
well, I've noticed too. I've noticed with that, not necessarily crowd work, but that whole like, hey, has anyone seen this new Joe Biden president, or like that type of stuff? It does not flow well in light rooms. I don't know why, but it almost like falls dead, and then you got to be like, yeah, when he was climbing up this, and you got to pull him back in.
Right.
When it used to be filled, it was way different.
Yeah, or they'll say something that like, I found this out this past weekend, like audiences say stuff now that like that they think is funny, like they feel like there's more of an in to like heckle a little bit, I feel like. Like, so I have this joke where I'm like talking about a witch book that I read, and I'm like, it said if you want to become a witch, you just have to say out loud that you are a witch. Like that was it. So then I'm like, so I'm a witch, and I'm like, does anyone else want to say it? And like one night there was a complete silence, and then this guy goes, my ex-wife's a bitch or a witch, and I was just like, oh man, like that's what's happening now. Like, because there was so much quiet.
Yeah, people. It's been funny because I think people are more uncomfortable with the quiet than the comedians are. Like, I think you've been doing it for a while now, so it's like silence doesn't bother you. You're used to it.
No.
Not saying you bomb, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
but
No,
audiences are like, am I supposed to talk? Because there's not a lot of people in here. When there's a lot of people in there, I don't know. It almost is like we're all quiet, so I'll be cool. But when there's no one in the room, like shit, they're drowning. My wife's a witch. And you're like, oh,
yeah. It's like I was fine. I wonder if that's because of. I think I'm like 10 years in, but I think that I got better because of Zoom, maybe with the quiet, because you're just like talking into a void. Sometimes if like the laughter, if they have the mic off or whatever, it's like, and I'm always on my phone. So I can't see anybody who's in the crowd, the Zoom crowd.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just like I'm speaking to nobody.
Well, actually, because you studied acting and stuff, right?
I did. When I moved here, I did improv for a few years.
So
and then some acting. Yeah.
I'm always curious about comics who are able to do that, and that kind of leads into the Zoom thing. I remember when I used to work the door and then come in and watch shows. And the first person I saw twice in a weekend was John Reap. And I go, oh, he's just doing the same thing. And it almost was like you're acting for an hour, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always curious as to, do you think that being able to act or having that skill helps with your comedy? Not necessarily make you write better jokes, but you can kind of be like, I'm not fucking feeling this shit, but I can still give the same energy. I'm on a Zoom call. Yeah. But I can still put forth the energy that I need.
Well, I mean, I went to an acting school. I'm not good at it. I went after I was in New York. It's this place called the Barrow Group. And a bunch of New York comics were like, you should take an acting class. Like everyone was kind of doing that, you know? So I did it. And I remember like, we had to read these like sad monologues or whatever. And the teacher was like, has nothing bad ever happened to you? And I was like, no, tons of bad shit's happened to me. Like, I just couldn't do it. And then finally, he was like, well, why don't you just do it like you're doing stand-up? So I just read it in my normal like stand-up cadence. And he was like, that was perfect. And I was like, well, I know how to do that. Like, that's not why I came here. Like, now we're back to square one.
Yeah, give me my money back.
I was like, what the
doing
fuck?
Nothing.
So I can only act if I'm doing my like stand-up cadence, I guess, is what we found out.
But and also with improv, so some of my favorite comics are very good improv people, right? Because they're not necessarily, you can be really good at writing jokes or composing jokes or being witty and all, but I think there's a fun that comes with people who do improv when they're on a stand-up stage.
Yeah.
Do you find that you have, I don't want to say more fun doing stand-up, but you're like, I don't have a team. I can do what I kind of want to do, and I'm going to let this sizzle how it goes.
Yeah, I did improv for about 3 years, and I think that when I was doing it, there was like a comfort level like of being by myself and doing stand-up. Like I craved that. Like I was like, I just want to do. Because improv to me was like, and a lot of stand-up shit on improv, and like I get why, because improvisers are super annoying when they're all together. Like watching a bad improv show is so painful. But it's like you have to be silly, and you have to like let yourself be silly, and like not like if you can't find anything that's funny, you just have to keep fucking trying to figure it out. And I think that helped me with stand-up a lot, and like I think it helped my writing. And when I think with everything too, it's like when I wasn't practicing it as much, I wasn't as good. So like, but when I was doing a lot of improv, I was really good at crowd work and like, you know, kind of moving in and out of bits and stuff. If I got heckled, like that was no problem. Like, so I think it's something that helped me, but I don't think it helped. I don't know if it helps me that much anymore because I don't do it anymore. Really. Well, I'm like out of practice.
Yeah, I think there's something to losing fear in a comedy club. So as far as a comedian kind of losing fear of like fucking up, you get better. If you work at a comedy club, like I'm not afraid of kicking any. Well, Indomitian Sue once punked me, but outside of that, I've never been afraid of kicking anybody out. And I think you get to a point where you're like, well, I don't have to be afraid, so it's so much easier, right? Like, before you bomb or before you're up there just sucking, you're like, I can't do that because then it's over. And then you do it, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm here tomorrow anyway.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not gonna. I should tell you this. I did get fired once from a weekend.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, hold on. That?
Yeah. So really quick, thank you for listening to Center Stage. Here's the full introduction. I'm Nick. Whatever. I'm here with Lindsay Boling. You're recording your album on the 16th of May, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Philadelphia. Go do that if you're in town. I think this will drop before that. So, ladies and gentlemen, go support.
Yes, come. It'll be fun.
Now, how did you while we're hyping up to go see you do comedy?
If I'm hired, if I keep my job.
How did you get fired from a weekend?
No, so I won't say the headliners. I don't think this was like 10 years ago at the Improv in Louisville. I was emceeing. There was like something that happened with the headliner and so there were a bunch of people like hanging out in the green room after the show. This might be a long story now that I'm into it.
No, we got time. I'm with it.
Okay. It is. I feel like it's a good comedy story. So there were like 2 bachelorette parties at this show, which he was like flirting with like a couple of girls on Twitter, like backstage. After the show, they all want to hang out. So we're like, me and the feature and the headliner were all like buying them drinks at the bar, like everyone's having fun. And then 2 of the girls come up to me. This is like it's probably 1:30 in the morning. They come over to me and they're like, oh, our friend's gone. We're like looking for our friend. I was like, oh, I know where she is. She's back. She was back in the green room. But there were like a bunch of people back there, but there's no cell service back there. So, which is fucked up.
Crazy build out.
Messed up. So I go back. I take the girls back to like where their friend is, and she ends up leaving with them. And I think the headliner was pissed because like he thought that she was gonna like go back to, but this girl, I'm not kidding you not, I was 21. She was probably 19, 18. The headliner is like in his 40s. Like she wanted to leave, but also everyone was so drunk. So then she leaves and he's pissed. Like he was pissed at me for like bringing her friends back there to get her. Oh, and I made some shitty, like, I was like, oh, don't be sad, you just didn't get laid or something like that. And he was like, you won't be back here tomorrow. And like, I got fired. We're talking shit.
Yo,
it was so bad.
I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a manager who would have to tell that person, like, nah. Like, cause I'd be like, wait, so you didn't fuck somebody.
Right.
Because of the MC.
Yeah.
So now they can't work. It would be.
It was so messed up. So the feature who had been doing comedy for like over 20 years also quit because he was like, this is messed up.
Yeah, this is
so
nuts.
So he quit, and then it was like the talk of the comedy scene, obviously at the time. And so everybody else was like, oh, they're going to ask us to fill in. And they were like, we're not going to do it, except this one guy who I love, Brad Lanning's his name. He's so funny, but he like didn't get the memo because he has like a wife and kids, and like they called him the feature. He's like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. Like, I'll be down there at the club, and everyone was like, what the fuck? And then he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. And I was like, I don't care.
Right.
But yeah, so I went to get my check the next day, and like, it was like a bad breakup or something. Like, I was like, so I don't come back here tonight, right? And he was like, no. Don't come back.
Oh, I would have put on the little the like glasses with mustache and like the fake nose. I would have shown up and then heckled. Little like down hat. And just like, fuck you.
Yeah. No, this guy, there was no one coming to this guy's shows. And it's not someone who's still working today. I do want to make that clear. He's not I don't know what he's doing.
So this was actually on my mind this weekend. I was talking to a comic about a manager. I don't fuck it. I was talking to a comic about how some managers get too loose, right? Like too familiar, too friendly. You know, you hear stories about managers doing like blow in the office and shit like that.
Right.
I mean, how do you maneuver around it? Because I've never had a situation here where a comic was like, "Hey, I didn't get pussy last night because this fucking you got." How do you maneuver around that shit?
I think now I'm just like, number one, I'm older and more experienced, and I just don't get involved in that shit anymore. If there's like, I mean, I was joking when I was at Helium Indie last weekend, and it was like the most like, the green room was so like, my parents were in there. There was only like bitches we brought back to the green room was like my mom and dad. Like it was like the most like, there was we would hang out after the shows, but like it was very chill and like but I think just like if I am in a situation where that's going on, I'm kind of like no, I'm good. Like I just make it very clear that like I'm not hanging out at the club late. Like I'm going back to do at the hotel like my own thing. Like I'm not here to hang. Like I might even be like I don't really do like I'm sober or whatever. Like make some shit up to like just like leave. And I think living in New York helps too, because like I can just be like, no, this is all nipped in the bud, you know. Right. Like I don't feel pressure to like be cool, I guess.
Yeah, you're like, fuck it, I'm leaving. Fuck
I'm
out
like,
of here.
yeah, I'm a loser, I'm not doing this. Not that that's being cool, but you know. Yeah, I haven't had anybody really recently who I haven't run into anybody who does that. And I think it's because like I don't work a lot of like, if I do work the road, it will be at a Helium or like a bigger club. Like I don't do a lot of like one-nighters like outside of New York. But like definitely when I was younger, that shit went on. I thought that's how it was always going to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't get to go to too many places that aren't A-level clubs. So I guess I am kind of curious if I went to, you know, some place in Montana or some shit, if there's a comic who's been doing it 25 years and he's trying to mosey up to the bar and pull somebody, but I don't see that anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Like I was just going to say, I think that was definitely a scene, and that manager, like that story, that he was a perfect example of someone who was like too familiar and too loose. Like he was back in the green room, like drinking and smoking with everybody else, you know?
He was probably mad they left too.
Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Like he was like one of the boys, you know? So I was like, but yeah, you're right. It's different. I feel like it's different now. Like I can remember, yeah. I don't know.
Even when someone brings a lady, I think it's a different type of thing. It's not the same hotel room vibe.
Yeah, right. Like you might do that. You might take them back to your hotel or something, but it doesn't happen like in the greater, at least in my experience.
Right.
But yeah,
Luckily.
I mean, I can remember some. Yeah, thank God. I'm like, I've been involved in some shady shit.
What thing for me, the craziest it's ever been is someone trying to get an underage, and not like Dalia underage, but like 19 under 21 in the club, where you're like,
yeah,
like, but it's never been a real, man, this is shaky.
Yeah, right. Are you guys over 21?
We're over 21. Like in Portland, if you are under 21, you can maybe come to the mics when we have it sectioned off. But for the most part, you got to be over 21. Right. Which I'm happy about. I don't like kids.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to deal with like everybody showing ID, like all that shit. Yeah. I mean, I just have never. Yeah. I mean, everybody's been, knock on wood, like for the past like 5 years or so, everything's been really cool, and like people are generally pretty decent that I've worked with.
I will say I've gotten sexually harassed twice here.
Really?
Yeah, by audience members though. But it was kind of influenced by the comic.
So, you mean like while you were doing comedy or while you were managing?
No, I don't do comedy. So
right. Okay.
It was I had to fix something on stage, and Heather McDonald was here, and she looked at me, and then the crowd was like, "Ooh, look at that sexy motherfucker!" And I was just like, "Oh my god!" I got off stage.
See, yeah.
And then Christina and Corinne were here, and they were trying to get me on stage once to be like, "Here's our friend Nick," and I was like, "Fuck no!" Right. And so I had to hide the whole show.
Yeah.
But that's not like serious.
Well, I mean, it's all serious. Listen, I work in hospitality management for my day job. I'm like, sexual harassment, very serious. I get sexually harassed there every day. It's horrible. But I also like those type of crowds, like I've not to, like they're that comedy and those types of crowds. I used to work for the Chelsea Lately people all the time. Loved it. Like they're the best. But those crowds, especially how they're like they drink a lot. They're right, like they think that she would probably think that was funny.
Yeah, they're horny crowds.
Would. Right. And like they're like, oh, this is what you would do if you were, they like put you in and you're like, no. I remember one time Sarah Colonna or somebody was like, when they were talking about someone would write them on Twitter and they would always be like, hey bitches, and she's like, why do people call me a bitch all the time? Like she's like, that do they think that that's like how I talk? It's like, yeah, maybe, like
that's always a funny thing though. We had that we almost have that every weekend, and especially now with podcasts where they're like, you're my best friend, so I'm like, what's up, slut? Like, right. Yo, you don't know me.
Yeah, but right.
It's a real, we have people trying to sneak in the green room, like, where you're like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I just want to talk. And you're like, I don't care what you want to do. No one knows you.
Shit. Yeah.
Like, get out of here. But people have this sense where I'm very invested in you. I've listened to your podcast. I know, where you're going to be, what you're going to do, what you think. Hey, we both like Avengers. And it's a very weird thing now that people are becoming fanatical about comics.
Yeah, that is probably like, that's a big slippery slope. I feel like Karenin gets that a lot. Talking to her, I know her from New York. I don't know Christina as well, but I know that that's a huge thing for her, like with people following her. It's a bunch of lesbos that follow me around. And I have the opposite thing where they're like, after they like tweet at me, they're like, we're at the show. And then after the show, I'm like, where'd you guys go? And they're like, we left. And I'm like, why did you leave?
Yo, they don't make better crowds than lesbian crowds. They do not make better crowds. Mm-mm. It's my favorite crowd of all time.
We're respectful. We want to have fun. We laugh. We don't yell out. We're very well behaved.
Ugh. It's the best.
Yeah, I just wish they would say hi afterwards. They just scurry away.
Yeah, it is I think though, people who are actually respectful, they don't want to bother you. Like they understand that, you just had a show. I don't want to come up, hey, it's like, oh, thank you so much from afar. I appreciate you. And they keep it moving.
Right. Yeah.
It's having
which I guess is
respect.
nice, but it's like, yeah, like I want to feel like I have one fan. One or two.
So I do have a question now about recording an album. So
yeah.
This is your first one, right?
First one.
So I've asked a lot of people who are doing albums with Helium, and I'm going to ask you, but I think you might be the first one who has yet to record one. But for you, what makes a perfect album recording? Like in your mind going into it, what are the things where you're like, this is what I need to have nailed down for me to be happy with it?
I think like at the beginning when we were talking about it, I was really worried because of COVID numbers and like the laughter, and like I was like, I want it to sound like good and whatever. And I was talking to Jeremy Essig, who's does the sound and so much more, but he was like, don't worry about that. He's like, we're gonna like the numbers will get better numbers. He's like, the sound will figure itself out. And like he mixed some sound for me this past weekend, and I was like, oh, it sounds great. Like so I had to move from that and be like, I think I just want to focus on, because I know I'm recording in Philly, which like, I'm not from Philly, but I've worked there so much. I do all their Pride shows every year. And like, I've just worked there so much, and I'm like, I'm excited to be there. So I think that like going to a place where the crowd's going to be good, like the Helium in Philly is an incredible room. Like just knowing that it's going to be there. Like, so having that excitement is good. And then, just like I'm still figuring out like what order I want to do things in. But I think like just focus. I mean, as someone who clearly hasn't done it yet, so no one's ever asked me this, so I'm like, I don't fucking know.
Right.
But I think like I just want to make sure that like I am like having fun. I think because I think that will come across on it. And I know they've been recording like most weekends, so that kind of takes the pressure off too. Because I'm like, even if I'm not putting all the pressure on one night.
Right.
So I don't know. Right now, I would just say having fun, making sure there's a bunch of lesbos there. Yeah, I don't really know. I guess ask me after.
Well, no, I love the perspective of I've never, because I'm trying to think of an analogy for it, and there
Yeah.
really isn't one in any other thing where you're like, let's say I'm a painter and I'm gonna put my paintings in a gallery for the first time, right?
Yeah.
That's not as stone cold concrete as a recording of your album, right? Like,
Yeah.
we'll take the paintings down, I'll come back with another one or whatever. But to look at it like, I'm gonna record this,
Right.
and this is forever.
Right.
I mean, it's so cool
Well,
to me.
yeah, and there's that old comedy adage of like, don't record anything because you'll have a shitty set. Like, well, fuck, like, how am I gonna? You have to record it.
Right.
But I think the fun, like, for me, it's like if I'm having fun on stage, like you can definitely tell. I think when people are listening, so I want to make sure that I'm like loose and like not, and I think not overthinking what I'm saying.
Right.
And being like, if I mess up, like, who gives a shit? But you're
That's
not.
how I live my life.
Yeah. Like you say it so many times, like you're not going to. Like what other night have I ever fucked up? Not like I mean, many a times, but like that's what I'm trying to think about.
Well, like,
I don't forget what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, worst case scenario, it's the worst show you've ever done, and then you have another one, right? Like, you're not doing one shot one night.
Right, exactly. So that's why I'm like, even in like the sound on at Saturday's early show at Helium and Indy was like really great. So I'm like, I feel like we'll be fine.
Well, I just watched Nate Bargatze's special. He recorded the shit outside and it sounds good.
Oh yeah, I was floored by it. I didn't even realize it was outside. I wasn't watching the intro until that helicopter flew overhead, and then he was like, "Well, dude, this like riff was so good." Yeah. Where he's like, next show's at LAX or something. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, so it's like that was something that I was like so overly worried about, and it's like then now we're close to it. I'm realizing like it's not even have to be a thought in my head.
Right.
But yeah, and also I think I've been trying to think about just getting jokes on it that like that are from maybe the past 10 years that like I don't really tell that much anymore, but like I want to throw on something. And like, cause I'm like, all that work that I did, even though my joke writing has gotten a lot better, I did have a few, I would say maybe 2 good jokes in the first 5 years that could go on an album.
Well, yeah, I think every once in a while, well, I would say all good comedians, right? Because I've seen so many open mics where people do it for the first, second, third, 4 times. Mm-hmm. And they end up turning good, but you see like, oh, that's a brilliant thing you got right there. You don't know what to do with it, but you got something brilliant right there.
Right. Like the idea is there. So what I've been doing lately is going back in my notebooks and like trying to be like, oh, what's something I can rewrite now? Mm-hmm. Which I should be doing all the time anyways. But it took a pandemic. It took a pandemic. And now we're doing it.
All right, so now we're going to go to notes from a producer. So we're going to get a couple of questions from a producer. We'll answer them, and then we'll get out of here. And for real, thank you so much for doing this. I didn't know you were friends with Shane, or this would have changed everything. That's my guy 100%. So once I heard that, I was like, all right, we're cool. Oh,
no, he's the best, yeah.
So can you tell us something about, or something that you witnessed in a comedy club that could have only happened in a comedy club?
Ooh.
Like, I think for me, it's probably...
I don't know.
I love when a crowd gets berated.
Oh, and like, they like it.
Yeah. Like, we had, so we had tough crowds this weekend, and they'd be like, hey, how long you been married? And they'd be like, 20 years. And no one would clap. And he goes, can you believe these motherfuckers won't even clap at that? I'm up here trying to entertain them, and they won't even give a fuck that you're married to. Like, I think that any other place that doesn't happen where I could be like, you are a fucking idiot. And people are like, right. I am.
Yeah. Damn. I don't know. Wait, can we come back to that one?
Yeah, we can come back to it.
Let me think a little more.
Let it burn for a bit on the back burner.
Yeah, let it burn.
When you think about all the times you've done comedy.
Oh, wait, shoot.
Oh, I was gonna say, when you think about all the times you've done comedy in a club, what moment jumps out to you? Like, if you're meeting someone's grandparents or some shit, and they're like, ooh, tell me a story. Like, what's the story? Like, oh, this is the one.
Well, the first one that jumped out was when I, this is gonna sound lame, but I won the, there's always like, every city has like a comedy competition. Are those still around?
Yeah, it is. In the summer, for sure.
So I was at the improv one night, like doing that. And I think we only had to do like 6 or 8 minutes or something. And I won. And it was the first, I only been doing it. There were so many dudes that were pissed because I only been doing comedy for like a year and a half. And they were like, the fuck is this?
Get better, you idiot.
This girl. But it was filled. I mean, there were like whatever the capacity was, and that club was huge. And just like it was still probably the loudest laughter I've ever heard. But I was just like, and I was just so new, and I was like, I'll be chasing that like forever.
Right.
But just the first time you hear that loud of laughter, I think is like something that will like stick with you with any comic. Like there's nothing else like it. You're like, I did that. Maybe that's the thing that you would never hear anywhere else except for comedy club.
No, that's true. Like the roars I've heard for Maria Bamford or Patton Oswalt, like when you have 300 people in a room and they're like, I'm gonna scream my fucking heart out. It's so cool.
Well, and that's, I think, to kind of tie it back into the first question, like that's what I love about comedy is it's like, and I think that this is what drives me is like like just relating to people and like telling like a Maria Bamford, like getting up there and talking about like your life and like the most vulnerable parts of you. And you're not at therapy, but it's, you know, you're like just connecting with people in that way. And you're like, if they're laughing, then they have also felt that type of embarrassment or like whatever. And like, now we're all laughing about it together.
Well,
and it's like,
Yeah, especially like because you're in the New York scene, so you get to see all these sets. And here, I even feel closer to some people because I'm like, oh, how'd that hike go that you went on last week? I heard your bit of like, it's this thing where you build a real strong, and that's why I like communities where comics watch comics a lot because I think it does breed that thing where you're like, oh, I like what you're doing with that bit, but hey, how you said you got new shoes, what's going on?
Yeah, this is what I'll say is because it doesn't necessarily involve the audience, but like you like walking into a green room and there's just like no small talk. Like even if you don't like, I didn't know John Doerr. That's who I was working with last weekend, and like we walked in and you just like start talking about whatever the fuck like immediately. Like I think I went through a breakup and I was like, oh, I just got fucking dumped. Like that was the first sentence. Like, and he was like, oh man, like, like it's like I don't even know this guy. Like, but when I'm like in a different city, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get to the fucking green room because like I just want to get there and like feel like I can talk to other comics and like feel safe and just like jump right at you've had shared experiences, and it's like you're never gonna have that anywhere else where you just like don't have small talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's made it the hardest for me to not be in a comedy club. Like you're at the bank and like, oh, hey, how you doing? You're like, oh man, my girlfriend, I saw her in bed with someone. And like, okay,
right,
he's back. Like it really, I've never even thought about it like that, but it is in a comedy club world or zone, even amongst staff, and you can speak on this too. It's very like open and let's have fun and fuck all the bullshit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one of the things I love the most about it is like just being able to like. No, there's no chit chat. There's no like, I don't know. It's
the
chit chat,
weather's
but it's
nice.
good. Yeah, there's none of that shit. I hate that shit. I can't do it.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. All right, so this will be the last one, and then thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. You have a beautiful setup behind you, which I'm sure took hours to set up.
This is I think that's actually tilted.
Yeah,
that's
very much so. Yeah.
Beautiful city of Louisville back there. It's falling down. It's falling down. I'm not tall enough to get up there.
All right, so what's a perfect night for you? And then we're talking from like the beginning of the day. So we'll just say city blank. You get in town Thursday, you do your show, you're waking up Friday in a hotel room. Lay it out for me. What's your perfect day?
Oh, so I love walking. So I walk about 2 hours a day in New York. So I would definitely go. I know. I like to walk like to work. I don't go to therapy. I walk. So I would get up, like get a coffee, like probably like I like to journal a little bit. Then I would go for a walk and like kind of see the city, whatever city I'm in. Like I love history and learning, so I'll probably go. Like I went to the Edelgeorg Museum when I was in Indy. So I'd definitely hit up like a museum. Then I would take myself out to lunch, couple cocktails at lunch, come home, do a little writing, and then go to the club.
Do you hang and are you at situations where you are hanging out after the club? Like, I mean, John Doerr to me is one of the best people. Like, I'll hang out till 1 o'clock with John.
Oh yeah.
Are you at the point we can do that?
Yeah, I will say this past weekend I was like, I'm not used to being out late, like at all. So like the last show would end, it was like 12, and I was like, I gotta go home. Like I'm too tired. Thursday we hung out really late, but yeah, I'll go have drinks after. I'm a like a 1 a.m.er type of girl though. Like I'm not out till 4.
I mean, nothing good happens after 1.
I can't do it. I try to do it. I'm like, I can't handle it.
It's too tiring.
So yeah, I know. And like my best friends are like, it's so funny because they're like, yeah, we know, like Peggy O'Leary is one of my best friends. She's a Philly girl. She's like, she's a 4 a.m.er. She'll be out. I'm like, I don't Irish exit, but I peace out it. Yeah.
Oh, I want to be the 4 a.m. person. Like,
me too.
I have this fantasy where I can be a manager who's getting drunk during the shows and like partying and like I think his tie's off now. Like I want to be that manager where like this motherfucker lost it. I can't.
People in the streets are talking about the next day. Like,
right.
Did you guys go to Helium?
Yeah, the manager. We once had somebody who came drunk. They were an usher and they were sitting with people at their table. So they would like seat them and then sit down and be like, man, what a great night, huh? It was one of my favorite things. We had to let them go, obviously, but I loved it so much.
Yeah, that is funny. I feel like I would like that as an audience member if someone was doing that.
Yeah, you'd be like, this is the best club of all time.
Yeah, definitely. Be like, that guy was fucked up, but we had a good time.
Yeah. Our drinks came quick, too. He just pulled it out of his pocket.
Right, yeah.
So, Lindsay, you got your album recording. Where else can people go fuck with you? Where should they go to see
I'm on Instagram mostly a lot. At Elbols, LBOLS. I tweet occasionally. It's the worst Instagram name ever. And then I freaking folded and got a TikTok.
Yo, I've been thinking about this. So
oh my God, I got it today. There's nothing on it yet, but there will be stuff on it. I just got it.
Is it worth it, you think?
I think it's going to be. I think it's something that I hesitated for too long on, but I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. I think you should do it.
I mean, that's what it seems like. People are just on to be on now.
Yeah, it's like I think it's the new. I don't want to say Instagram's done, but I feel like it's like the new Instagram. But isn't it just Vine?
I think it is basically Vine.
I'm old now. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I feel like, a person in the 50s talking about, what's this new phone you just dial?
Yeah, no clue. But I am on I am on it, so you can follow me there.
Breaking news, y'all.
Yeah.
All right,
what have I done?
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Center Stage.